And so we begin with The Miracle Worker. This is the screenplay by William Gibson. As you can see, well, I need to share my screen here with you. So, as you can see here, we have the characters in the story. The time is the 1880s. The place is in and around the Keller homestead in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Also, briefly, the Perkins Institution for the Blind in Boston. And so we shall begin with Act 1. It is night over the Keller homestead. Inside, 3 adults in the bedroom are grouped around a crib in lamplight. They have been through a long vigil, and it shows in their tired bearing and disarranged clothing. One is a young gentlewoman with a sweet girlish face, Kate Keller. The second is an elderly doctor, stethoscope at neck and a thermometer in fingers. The third is a hearty gentleman in his 40s with chin whiskers, Captain Arthur Keller, the doctor. She'll live. Thank God. The doctor leaves them together over the crib, packs his bag. Doctor, you're a pair of lucky parents, I can tell you now. I thought she wouldn't. You Kellers. Nonsense. The child's a Keller. She has the constitution of a goat. She'll outlive us all. Doctor, amiably. Yes, especially if some of you Kellers don't get a night's sleep. I mean you, Miss Keller. You hear, Katie? I hear. Keller, I've brought up 2 of them. This is my wife's first. She isn't battle scarred yet. Doctor, or the Kate. Doctor, don't be merely considerate with, will my girl be all right? Oh, by morning she'll be knocking down Captain Keller's fences again. Kate, isn't there anything we should do? Keller, put up stronger fencing. Doctor, just let her get well. She knows how to do it better than we do. He is packed and ready to leave. Main thing is the fever's gone. These things come and go in infants. Never know why. Call it acute congestion of the stomach and brain. Keller, I'll see you to your buggy, doctor. I've never seen a baby more vitality. That's the truth. He beams a good night at the baby and Kate, and Keller leads him downstairs with a lamp. They go down the porch steps and across the yard where the doctor goes off left. Keller stands with the lamp aloft. Kate, meanwhile, is bent lovingly over the crib, which emits a bleat. Her finger is playful with the baby's face. Hush, now don't you cry now. You've been in enough trouble. Call it acute congestion, indeed. I don't see what's so cute about a congestion, just because it's yours. We'll have your father run an editorial in his paper. The wonders of modern medicine. They don't know what they're curing, even when they cure it. Men, men and their battle scars. We women will have to. But she breaks off, puzzled, moves her finger before the baby's eyes. We'll have to. Helen? Now she moves her hand quickly. Helen! She snaps her fingers at the baby's eyes twice, and her hand falters. After a moment, she calls out loudly, Captain, Captain, will you call? But she stares at the baby, and her next call is directly at her ears. Captain! And now Still staring, Kate screams. Keller in the yard hears it and runs with the lamp back to the house. Kate screams again, her look intent on the baby and terrible. Keller hurries in and up. Katie, what's wrong? Huh? She makes a pass with her hand in the crib at the baby's eyes. What, Katie? She's well. She needs only time to. She can't see. Look at her eyes. She takes the lamp from him, moves it before the child's face. She can't see. Hoarsely. Helen. Oh, here. When I screamed, she didn't blink. Not an eyelash. Helen. Helen. She can't hear you. Helen. His face has something like fury in it, crying the child's name. Kate, almost fainting, presses her knuckles to her mouth to stop her own cry. The room dims out quickly. Time, in the form of a slow tune of distant belfry chimes, which approaches in a crescendo and then fades, passes. The light comes up again on a day, 5 years later, on three kneeling children and an old dog outside around the pump. The dog is a setter named Belle, and she's sleeping. Two of the children are Negroes, Martha and Percy. The third child is Helen, 6.5 years old, quite unkempt, in body a vivacious little person with a fine head, attractive but noticeably blind, one eye larger and protruding. Her gestures are abrupt, insistent, lacking in human restraint, and her face never smiles. She is flanked by the other two in a litter of paper doll cutouts, and while they speak, Helen's hands thrust at their faces and turn, feeling baffledly at the movements of their lips. Martha snipping. First, I'm going to cut off this doctor's legs. One, two. Now then, why are you cutting off that doctor's legs? Martha. I'm going to give him an operation. Now I'm going to cut off his arms. One, two. Now I'm going to fix up. She pushes Helen's hands away from her mouth. You stop that. Percy. Cut off his stomach. That's a good operation. Martha. No, I'm going to cut off his head first. He got bad cold. Percy. Ain't going to be much of that doctor left to fix up time you finish all them opera. But Helen is poking her fingers inside his mouth to feel his tongue. He bites at them, annoyed, and she jerks them away. Helen now fingers her own lips, moving them in imitation but soundlessly. What do you do? Bite her hand? That's how I do. She keep poking her fingers in my mouth. I just bite 'em off. What's she trying to do now? She trying to talk. She gonna get mad. Look at her trying to talk. Helen is scowling, the lips under her fingertips moving in ghostly silence, growing more and more frantic until in a bizarre rage she bites at her own fingers. This sends Percy off into laughter, but alarms Martha. Hey, you stop now. She pulls Helen's hand down. You just sit quiet and. At once Helen topples Martha on her back, knees pinning her shoulders down, and grabs the scissors. Martha screams. Percy darts to the bell string on the porch, yanks it, and the bell rings. Inside, the lights have been gradually coming up on the main room, where we see the family informally gathered, talking, but in pantomime. Kate sits darning socks near a cradle, occasionally rocking it. Captain Keller, in spectacles, is working over newspaper pages at a table. A benign visitor in a hat, Aunt Ev is sharing the sewing basket, putting the finishing touches on a big shapeless doll made out of towels. An indolent young man, James Keller, is at the window watching the children. With the ring of the bell, Kate is instantly on her feet and out the door onto the porch to take in the scene. Now we see what these 5 years have done to her. The girlish playfulness is gone. She is a woman, steel in grief. Kate, for the thousandth time. Helen, she's down the steps at once to them, seizing Helen's wrists and lifting her off Martha. Martha runs off in tears and screams for Mama, with Percy after her. Let me have those scissors. Meanwhile, the family inside is alerted. Aunt Ev joins James at the window. Captain Keller resumes work. James blandly. She only dug Martha's eyes out. Almost dug. It's always almost. No point worrying till it happens, is there? They gaze out while Kate reaches for the scissors in Helen's hand. But Helen pulls the scissors back. They struggle for them a moment, then Kate gives up, lets Helen keep them. She tries to draw Helen into the house. Helen jerks away. Kate next goes down on her knees, takes Helen's hands gently, and using the scissors like a doll, makes Helen caress and cradle them. She points Helen's finger housewards. Helen's whole body now becomes eager. She surrenders the scissors. Kate turns her toward the door and gives her a little push. Helen scrambles up and toward the house, and Kate, rising, follows her. Aunt Ev, how does she stand it? Why haven't you seen this Baltimore man? It's not a thing you can let go on and on, like the weather. Huh, the weather here doesn't ask permission of me, Aunt Ev. Speak to my father, Aunt Ev. Arthur, something ought to be done for that child. Keller, a refreshing suggestion. What? Kate, entering, turns Helen to Aunt Ev, who gives her the towel doll. Aunt Ev, why, this is very famous oculist in Baltimore I wrote you about. What was his name? Kate, Dr. Chisholm. Yes, I heard of lots of cases of blindness people thought couldn't be cured. He's cured. He just does wonders. Why don't you write to him? I've stopped believing in wonders. Kate rocks the cradle. I think the captain will write to him soon. Won't you, Captain? Keller. No. James lightly. Good money after bad, or bad after good, or bad after bad. Well, if it's just a question of money, Arthur, now you're marshal, you have this Yankee money. Might as well, Keller, not money. The child's been to specialists all over Alabama and Tennessee. If I thought it would do good, I'd have her to every fool doctor in the country. Hey, I think the captain will write to him soon. Katie, how many times can you let them break your heart? Any number of times. Helen, meanwhile, sits on the floor to explore the doll with her fingers, and her hand pauses over the face. This is no face, a blank area of towel, and it troubles her. Her hand searches for features and taps questioningly for eyes, but no one notices. She then yanks at her aunt's dress and taps again vigorously for eyes. What, child? Obviously not hearing, Helen commences to go around from person to person, tapping for eyes, but no one attends or understands. Kate, no break. As long as there's the least chance for her to see or hear, or there isn't. Now I must finish here. I think, with your permission, Captain, I'd like to write. I said no, Katie. Why, writing does no harm. Arthur, only just a little bitty letter to see if he can help her. He can't. We won't know that to be a fact, Captain, until after you write. Keller, rising emphatic. Katie, he can't. He collects his papers. James, facetiously. Father stands up. That makes it a fact. You be quiet. I'm badgered enough here by females without your impudence. James shuts up, makes himself scarce. Helen now is groping among things on Keller's desk and paws his papers to the floor. Keller is exasperated. Katie. Katie quickly turns Helen away and retrieves the papers. I might as well try to work in a hen yard as in this house. James placatingly. You really ought to put her away, Father. What? Some asylum. It's the kindest thing, Aunt Anne. Why, she's your sister, James, not a nobody. James' half sister and half mentally defective. She can't even keep herself clean. It's not pleasant to see her about all the time. Kate, do you dare complain of what you can see? Keller, very annoyed. This discussion is at an end. I'll thank you not to broach it again, Ev. Silence descends at once. Helen gropes her way with the doll, and Keller turns back for a final word. Explosive. I've done as much as I can bear. I can't give my whole life to it. The house is at sixes and sevens from morning till night. Over the child, it's time some attention was paid to Mildred here instead. Kate, gently dry. You'll wake her up, Captain. I want some peace in this house. I don't care how, but one way we won't have it is by rushing up and down the country every time someone hears of a new quack. I'm as sensible to this affliction as anyone else. It hurts me to look at the girl. Kate, it was not our affliction I meant you to write about, Captain. Helen is back at Aunt Ev, fingering her dress, and yanks two buttons from it. Helen, my buttons! Helen pushes the buttons into the doll's face. Kate now sees, comes swiftly to kneel, lifts Helen's hand to her own eyes in question. Eyes? Helen nods energetically. She wants the doll to have eyes. Another kind of silence now, while Kate takes pins and buttons from the sewing basket and attaches them to the doll as eyes. Keller stands caught and watches morosely. Aunt Eb blinks and conceals her emotion by inspecting her dress. Aunt Eb, my goodness me, I'm not decent. Kate, she doesn't know better, Aunt Eb. I'll sew them on again. James, never learn with everyone letting her do anything she takes into her mind to. Keller, you be quiet. What did I say now? You talk too much. I was agreeing with you. Whatever it was, deprived child, the least she can have are the little things she wants. James, very wounded, stalks out of the room onto the porch. He remains here sulking. Aunt Eb indulgently. It's worth a couple of buttons, Kate. Look. Helen now has the doll with eyes and cannot contain herself with joy. She rocks the doll, pats it vigorously, and kisses it. This child has more sense than all these men Kellers. if there's ever any way to reach that mind of hers. But Helen suddenly has come upon the cradle and unhesitatingly overturns it. The swaddled baby tumbles out, and Captain Keller barely manages to dive and catch it in time. Helen! All are in commotion. The baby screams, but Helen, unperturbed, is laying her doll in its place. Kate, on her knees, pulls her hands off the cradle, wringing them. Helen is bewildered. Helen, Helen, you're not to do such things. How can I make you understand? Katie, Keller hoarsely. Kate, how can I get into your head, my darling? My poor Keller. Katie, some way of teaching her an iota of discipline has to be. Kate flaringly. How can you discipline an afflicted child? Is it her fault? Helen's fingers have fluttered to her mother's lips, vainly trying to comprehend their movements. I didn't say it was her fault. Then whose? I don't know what to do. How can I teach her? Beat her until she's black and blue? It's not safe to let her run around loose. Now there must be a way of confining her somehow so she can't. Where? In a cage? She's a growing child. She has to use her limbs. Answer me one thing. Is it fair to Mildred here? Kate inexorably. Are you willing to put her away? Now Keller's face darkens in the same rage as at herself earlier, and her hand strikes at Kate's lips. Kate catches her hand again, and Helen begins to kick, struggle, twist. Now what? She wants to talk, like, be like you and me. She holds Helen, struggling until we hear from the child, her first sound so far, an inarticulate, weird noise in her throat, such as an animal in a trap might make, and Kate releases her. The second she is free, Helen blunders away, collides violently with a chair, falls, and sits weeping. Kate comes to her, embraces, caresses, soothes her, and buries her own face in her hair until she can control her voice. Every day she slips further away, and I don't know how to call her back. Aunt Eb. Oh, I've a mind to take her up to Baltimore myself. If that doctor can't help her, maybe he'll know who can. Keller presently heavily. I'll ride the man, Katie. He stands with the baby in his clasp, staring at Helen's head hanging down on Kate's arm. The lights dim out, except the one on Kate and Helen. In the twilight, James, Aunt Eb, and Keller move off slowly, formally, in separate directions. Kate, with Helen in her arms, remains motionless in an image which overlaps into the next scene and fades only when it is well underway. Without pause, from the dark down left, we hear a man's voice with a Greek accent speaking. And we're going to stop there for tonight. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make you his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and grant you his peace. Shalom.